Hey guys and gals, welcome back to the John Yak Project. If you're wondering what this is and you're here for the first time, this is my attempt to turn a 1232 Jon boat into something that will take the lead for any small watercraft in this size, and that is to include the elite level kayaks. We initially called this project the Yak Killer, but we changed it because it offended people. I actually did this once before, but I'm gutting out everything that was in it because I can do a lot better. I actually have the confidence that I can pull this off, that I can make this the lightest craft ever. There will be nothing like it. There will be nothing that holds as much as it does, but as light as it is, and as transportable, and just as overall as versatile as it is. I think this thing will break the market. I could be wrong, but I'm right a lot about these things. Part of that is introducing an entirely new generation of framing, going back to some basics with some really new trends. Some people like room and stability, others like sheer lightness and portability. My mentality is it too much to ask for both? This project is a crossover for that. That is my entire goal with this. I'm going to stick a bass boat inside this small little Jon boat, and it is going to be transportable, truck beddable. It will have all the portability and versatility venues of a kayak, but it will have true storage, like a mini bass boat. No little gimmicks, no useless storage, no egg crates. This storage will have room for 12 rods, including 8-foot rods, maybe longer. It will have room for over 20 large series tackle trays. It'll still have room for all your day box and essentials, and still have room for a life jacket, batteries, and everything. And it will be completely transportable because we're running the lightest generation frame. For starters, we are getting rid of the plastic totes. They carried us for a while. The reason I used totes for so long, other than that they were already a preformed box shape, was because they were waterproof. Because it's really hard for water to sink into the box if it was a sealed plastic box. But there are problems with the boxes. For one, they're heavy. 2, they're bulky. 3, they taper, so you lose actual room and storage. And in a boat this small, we simply cannot afford to lose any storage. So we're going to go ahead and go at it a different way. These are our rivet together boxes. We sell these on our site, and later on I show you actually how to bend and fold and make one of these on your own if that's how you want to do it. But either way you do it, Clayco fasteners, which are those long little bullet-like looking things, those are really extremely useful for projects like this, where you're doing aluminum sheet metal work. And whether you buy our boxes or you make them yourself, they're extremely useful. Also for holding the frame together. I bought an entry-level kit of these, and I need a ton more. I don't have enough. We are sealing this box together with 35200. We use the painter's tape there because I don't know if you ever got 35200 on your clothes or on your hands. It doesn't like to come off of anything. So we are using it very tactfully. And once we have all the sides together, we're going to head and set it in the box down there. Because there's going to be a triple layer on each side of the box, we are putting in a little shim there to make sure it fits in tight. We're using the Clayco fasteners every so often. I don't know what else you would use. You would have to do temporary rivets that you would eventually have to drill out if you don't have these fasteners. I think that was the issue when I tried to do these rivet together boxes. But this time we've got a pretty good hole on it with the Clayco fasteners. And if done right, and if you allow the 3M to dry correctly, this will hold just like a live well. That's where we got the idea from initially. And it's going to work very well to make a sealed box to hold on my tackle. If you are going to do this and you want at least fairly dry results so you can work on it, you can shove it in some water for a while, and that'll dry the initial surface. The whole thing won't dry for 7 days. You shouldn't test it fully like a live well for that time, but it'll work if you do it this way. I'll be putting some adjacent bracket to kind of C-channel these right where it sits so we can attach things on. And if you wanted the rivet together box, this is how it works. You put the top on just like that, and it actually makes a pretty sweet live well. That's a rivet together live well right there.
we're just not going to use it for that. But just so you know, we do sell rivet together live wells. They are a lot cheaper than our welded live wells, and if you set them up the way we just showed you right now, theoretically will do just as well. I mean, we got the idea because we saw riveted live wells in older boats with no leaks. They're like 20, 30 years old. I would probably run buck rivets though versus pop rivets. And I know that they're a pain, but if you really want some serious longevity and hold out of a system like this for like a real live well, buck rivets really are the only way to go, where these will actually stretch. So the primary reason for this is not to hold like, what is it, like 30 gallons, 20 plus gallons of water in this thing. It's to, whenever water gets into the boat, it's going to be watertight to where it doesn't seep into the crevice into my tackle. It's actually going to, and the way that I set everything up with the rod tubes and the foam, it's going to be very, very hard for water to overtake any of this. What, 3700 tackle box, what they call it? Well, I don't know what they call them, but the bigger ones. Shove like 12 or 13 of them in there. That's all I need. That's all I need to carry some big tackle. I mean, try to stick that many in a Hobie or any sort of kayak without having to get an egg crate. Also, this leftover sealant that got all over my hands and I kind of flipped out, this stuff just comes, like once it's cured, it just comes right off. So I wasn't terribly worried about it at the time. So I mean, just look at it, it's rubbing right off with like super minor like thumb work here. So not cure completely for 7 days, but you stick it in the pool for, you know, X amount of hours, it definitely does cure the surface. In reality, we're probably gonna run it like this. And then I have another little box right here, which is actually made to pair this one. Thank complimentary to Nate at NCB Accessories. We're gonna pair that one like that. That's pretty sweet. I'm gonna do that for all the corners. Why not?
The bigger thing here with these boxes is at the rivet joints, all of them, you can attach framing to them, making the walls super thin. That means you don't actually have to frame around the box and give it additional under supports around it, causing a huge gap in the room. So if I'm gonna put all the stuff that I want to put in this boat, I cannot afford to move anything. We're micro framing this with Gen 7 core framing, which is specifically meant for micro boats like this. That's what Gen 7 is. We're going to show you the rest of the process here, but in order to even adhere to the standards and do those things, I got to frame super thin, micro, and that's how we're going to get all that storage in this boat. You might have to do some pre-mock lineups because it's highly unlikely the box is just going to magically fit right where your frame's going to level off. So we're going to go ahead and cut to fit that to fit. Meanwhile, we are going to go ahead and add some styrofoam panels. If you can get the pink foam board, that stuff's way better than styrofoam. I can't find it out here. So what I'm going to do is seal off the ends. It's already skinned on the top and bottom, and that gives it a lot of good protection, but the sides are exposed. The sides are the most vulnerable to water saturation and really to gasoline. If gasoline touches these foam panels, there goes your whole subfloor. This is a real thing that happens to people. There are horror stories out there, so try to avoid it if you can. So far, this is working pretty well. It's working so well that I'm going to go ahead and add a second box behind the main tackle stow. And this will be an additional tackle / day box where I can put more of my essentials. You know, a lot of it is just looking at the boat and moving stuff around here and there, and then finally executing and making a decision on where you want everything to sit. I think we have a pretty good lineup here. Right or just after the taper starts toward the front, we're going to go ahead and make the big core head. That'll give us enough room to make a pit stow and possibly another storage. But if we want any more waterproof boxes, we're going to have to make them ourselves, which we'll do. But all in good time. Right now we are framing out with our Gen 7 packet for the Jon Yak project, and this is all 1/16 aluminum that is only 1 inch thick. So we cut down the weight, and we also cut down the limiting factor in terms of crunch with 1.5-inch angle, which is what we use for most boats. But for a boat this small, that is not even 3 feet wide at the bottom, we got to be devious. I will tell you though, this frame doesn't weigh jack anything, and considering all goes well, we're going to have a really good run with the decking too, but that'll come in a later video. How we're going to get a lot of the cram out with our Gen X kit, we had to have a tube that was the joiner for the hatch to open and close. This time we're just simply using a hinge. The flat hinge with the bigger flat side and the lower connecting side allows us to T-frame it, sandwich it in between two pieces of angle, and then all we have to do is attach under supports or our sheet metal, and that helps us out a lot. We make sure you have a spacer underneath the very underside of the actual moving hinge, because you don't want it to bind against the frame. You don't want to attach it and then figure out later that it doesn't actually close all the way against the frame. That's devastating. That might actually, you'll have to redo it, and then you might actually ruin the whole hinge in the process. It's going pretty good. We're going to go ahead and secure a few things along the way. We're sectioning this out. The bigger thing, and I've done this in other boats, just not near as sophisticated, is we are running inner walls that hold all the conduits for the wiring. That's where it's all hidden, and it is completely accessible. You can take the panels off, you can look at it, you can make mods and additions to it, and we're going to have fully accessible paneled wiring that is going to run on each side of the core in and out. We'll be able to do anything, run anything in this boat that we want, and it will be completely flawless and accessible. You don't have to worry about a stupid fish tape, a snake. You don't have to worry about wondering how it is you're going to get to the wire to troubleshoot. You'll be able to access all of it. How I'm doing this is we are underlapping a piece of 1-inch angle underneath the initial T-frame to create a little channel. We do that for the top and the bottom. That's what gives us the little 1-inch clearance to run all the wires through. And everything else just takes time. Time to rivet, time to place. But the other beauty of this entire project is that they're dry hatches. No water can get in from the underneath, and no water can really get in from up top, because we're going to go ahead and make a lip. It's 1/2-inch angle, and we cut this strategically on 4 corners to bend it and fit it inside the frame. And when this is done, we create I guess it's a water diversion lip, what you would call it. But what happens is water's not going to run over that lip. It'll find the least path of resistance, and it'll drain out into the rod lockers. So we have 2 giant rod lockers on each side of this. We have those open. Now, if you channeled both of those like that, then water would start to stack up and eventually it would overtake somewhere. So this system has to have a runoff. So what we do is we make sure that wherever you're running one of these dry hatch lips, it has a place right next to the lip to run off to. In this case, it will be the lockers or the front or the back or wherever. We have really good testimony of this system working in our Gen X systems, which is made for bigger boats. And actually, if you wanted to run that system in a boat like this, you absolutely could. It would just be a little bit cramped. But the dry hatch system is the exact same. I ran it in quite a few projects now. I'm just happy to carry on those same principles into this one, because it'll do exactly what we need it to do. We are also using countersink rivets to make sure the top of the frame is flush. And anywhere later that we might mount sheet metal to, we also need to use those same rivets to impact the system. They're not as structurally sound as the panhead pop rivets, but in this case they'll do fine. But we use a combination of both throughout the entire build, and we use them where we see fit. We underlap that other piece we're using to make the channel. We underlap that underneath the rest of the frame, so we actually use less of the frame, and we don't have to overlay like we do in some cases with the Gen X. We've avoided most of the overlay in its entirety. If not by running the adjacent channel underneath, we did it by running angle brackets or by using the dry hatch lip to connect the pieces flush and then running supports with the sheet metal underneath. But the whole system fits pretty good. As long as it's solid and put together, none of it bends, none of it will fail, and it all fits pretty well. It just takes a bit of time to put together, that's for sure. We're running rivets everywhere underneath the top lip to connect them to the boxes, and then along the frame to joint them. Anywhere you see fit to run a rivet that you think will add to the integrity of the frame, use your best judgment. Came out pretty good so far. I'm pretty happy. I feel like this is the core that is going to do exactly what it needs to do. The boxes give me the max amount of room and the max thinnest walls that I can have, and they are ultimately lighter than the plastic totes we were going to use. That was a big problem with the Gen 4 frame and using those plastic totes. A slight deviation here is the front is going to taper slightly up because of how I ran the side brackets. I ran the side brackets directly underneath the inner gunnel lip, and so they kind of bend up, which will be fine as long as we can make this in segments and there's a slight degree bend. It's okay so long as you don't make the bend in the middle of a frame. In that case, your hatches will never close. You must have everything straight. You got to do what you have to do, including right now when we're laying a big piece of aluminum across the entire frame slats. Because if there's in any way some sort of imperfection where it bows or sinks or is elevated, your hatches will not sit flush. So aluminum does keep you honest in that fashion where you don't have that leeway like you do with wood. We use the rails just like we use anything, but those are 1-inch rails just like the rest of the frame. This process is going pretty good. We have the same supports on the top and bottom as we have for the rest of the core. So what I'm going to go ahead and try and do is make another waterproof box. I'm out of waterproof boxes. Thank you to Nate at NCB Accessories for providing me those boxes, as he provides them for everybody else. The link is in the description below. But if you think you can make a run at this and the cost to effectiveness ratio of it is cheaper for you to do by yourself, this is how you would kind of go away about doing it. I'm using a cheap Harbor Freight middle brake. It was like 50 bucks. And its max strength is that it will bend 1/16 inch aluminum. And it really puts a lot of stress on that brake to even do that. So we're using, I think, 0.040 or 0.050 aluminum sheets here. So this box isn't as strong as the other two, but it doesn't have to be because the other two are already pretty darn strong. So we'll have to beef a little bit of this up in certain places to make sure it's good. I'm trying to eliminate as many pieces as possible, so I bent that into a 4-degree bend, and I put the joint right in the middle of the one wall. So now let's see if we can maybe capitalize on that and make the bottom as nice and as precise as Nate made his with the Harbor Freight. It looks like, look at that. It's not too bad. Will it hold though? That's the thing. We're probably going to have to use a different approach. We're going to run 1/8 inch rivets down the bottom because, for one, we're going to end up using 3/16 down and we need something to hold it in place, and we can't use the Clayco fasteners forever. And this time we're using stupid tape. I'm not getting that crap all over my hands. This stuff doesn't come out of your hands. I don't know what its problem is. Here I go touching it anyways. Great. Whatever. I have to do something to seal it in there. It's super important that it's sealed from the outside because the water is going to be from the outside coming in. As long as you have pretty good sealant inside the joints where you joint it all together, you have a pretty good waterproof box. little tight fit there. I slightly forgot to compensate for how much the bottom would distort, like how it would fit in there. I kind of guesstimated it, and just make sure you make the bottom, however thick you make the actual box, the bottom, you have to compensate for how thick the bottom is first. But that's fine. It all lined up. We got it to work. We framed. Man, one of those long hinges that you get in the kit actually made spaces for 5 compartments. Made spaces for all the compartments. And I have 2 big ones left for the wings, which are going to be rod lockers. And then I'll have a little one left for the actual electric stove spot. And this is more of a close-up of how we T-frame that hinge in. Actually, this one, because this is on an extra large hatch, just to give it a little bit of extra grit, I put a piece of 1/8 inch flat bar on it for a little security. I'll show you that a little bit more in close-up later.
What? It's hollow! You're kidding me? I can stick a whole bunch of other shit in there.
Okay, so that was surprising. Wasn't expecting that. I thought there was foam in that front. Like, I wonder if that passed quality control. Whatever. That's actually going to help me a lot because I need to run wires to and from underneath there to connect to the front for all the stuff I got to do here. But right here, what I'm doing is giving that C-channel that we made out of, you know, piecing those 2 pieces of aluminum together. Now we're making the outer wall. There's already an inner wall, and now we need an outer wall with braces. So we're doing that with 1/8 inch by 1.5 inch flat bar that is included in the kit. What is not included in the kit, though, is this .025 aluminum sheet that I got from the local metal shop. So we can sell you that as well. In fact, we'll probably have to revise the kit. But what this is, that's exactly what it is. Because right now I'm starting to get a little paranoid about the weight. We're probably going to run .025 sheeting everywhere else for all this stuff. And what this does is this allows me to have a little channel for the wire to sit and run down. So the bigger problem with the other walls like this is that I had to attach little grommets and fasteners and wire, whatever, to hold all the wires in bulk, whether it was in a pipe, and then I had to use the pipe, and I had to run, you know, stupid fish tape, or I had to run them through braided expandable sleeving, which was the lighter way, and we still may do that in sections here, maybe, but now we don't have to. We can just make sure the wire runs nice and softly through and sits right into those little channels, and you can stack a ton of wires in those little channels. It works so well. Now I'm going to go ahead and just go to town and cut all these things too. And I'm going to fold them with that cheap brake, and then I'm going to stick them in there. I have plans to make the right side the mega locker. The left side will be a not so big locker to hold all the little, you know, the worm dragon poles, and this side's going to be all the man poles. We're going to make sure they go there and, you know, just do all that. Crank all these out. We'll have a decent set of rows from each side conduit wall so we can run wires all day. And you guys know how much I love wiring, right? So there will be wires ran. You ever like it when a plan goes full swing? Like sometimes when I see things in my head and I think it's gonna work, it doesn't work, but this time everything pretty much worked. Everything is going to plan. We're gonna go ahead and run some preliminary wires. We're not quite there yet to run all the wires, but enough of them can be ran. We're gonna go ahead and run the 6 gauge for the trolling motor, and we're gonna go ahead and run the I think 10 gauge for the fish finder. We're running a Garmin EchoMap 93 SV up there. Like, rest assured, this boat doesn't weigh jack shit. Pardon my French, but it doesn't. This entire frame likely weighs just about as much or less as the 2 bench seats I gutted out of it. No joke. I really wanted to show you it completed, but man, this was actually fairly complicated to get it this far with some of the problems I ran in. I'm really happy with the boxes. I'm extremely happy with the Rivet Together like machine boxes that are precisionally done. I'm also happy with my version of them, although it is just not as nice as theirs, but you can do it. We showed you both. You can make a decision on what you want to do. Now you can just not do these at all
The more important thing with these is just look at the floor. We have between 13 and 14 inches of usable space. I mean, water gets in here, it's gonna immediately flood. There's no subfloor. The subfloor is invisible. The subfloor is 1.5 inches. The subfloor is the foam. The subfloor is the ribs. We can't put a nice generous drain channel down this thing. It's just not gonna be able to be done. So what we're gonna bring back is the vented flooring. The vented flooring was in the initial version here, and I haven't done it in a while, but it is the perfect thing to use for a boat like this. And we'll talk all about the advantages of that. We'll show you the advantages of that. But right now, this is where it needs to be. Another thing we're going to be using are these golf tubes. People have been asking me about these. I think they suck, to be honest, compared to a PVC conduit or the white PVC stuff. Like these, they're thin and you can't really flare them too much on the end. I mean, I got about as good as I could get right there. But they're going to fit perfect right here. It was almost like it was meant to be that way. I don't have to do much to them other than put an interface right there and there for them. And we're running 12 of these. The advantage to these, they don't weigh nothing. They weigh jack diddly squat. And I tell you, 12 of those weigh less than one PVC pipe. I went and bought PVC because I was just so pissed I couldn't flare these out that well. But no, there's the difference between like the weight is like night and day. If I can't make this thing light as humanly possible with everything I do, then the whole project is for nothing. Because there's nothing else that I can accomplish by elite framing a boat other than to make this micro frame that is so stupid light, it makes buying a $5,000 kayak worthless. That is my goal. Hinges are all set. They're ready to attach the deck on. I got a few more rivets. I got some Clayco fasteners in here holding some stuff. I mean, I still have to put a lot more rivets in it. I wasn't sure what to do. I almost dry hatched the back. I almost did a box in the back, and I was like, no, hold out. I'm glad I held out, because this is just really going to be a giant open conduit, and I didn't want to run the batteries in the back. I wanted to run them mid-boat or even in a 12-footer because of the displacement issues. You can run it all the way almost up front to like the 30 mark, where that first dry hatch box is. But we're going to be running lithium, I think. This is the outboard we're going to be running, and we might get the privilege to run an Alco electric 5-horse with a lithium battery setup. That'll be very cool. 24-volt setup there. And we got a few trolling motors we can obviously run on a 24-volt setup if we don't even want to run this. So there's many different setups. We'll be likely running forward and aft plugs for that setup, so you can run all electric setups or electric gas hybrid setups. I plan to do a lot. Like if I was going to go tour the country for a little bit and I needed to bring one boat, this would be my boat. My truck beddable, trailer dollyable, anywhere on the beach, haul it anywhere. Yak Killer, or I'm sorry, John Yak. Here it is. Let me talk to you a little bit about the layout here. What I'm able to accomplish in this thing. Because I said a lot of stuff that I was going to be able to put in here, and I do mean a lot. In the back, we're going to have 2 big foam bunkers right here and right over there. And in the middle, we're going to have a big enough channel for a 3-gallon gas tank or a fairly big grouped battery. But the main battery compartment is going to be here, and it's going to be probably a lithium or a very, very small, a group 24 lead acid. It's depending on the setup that I'm going to run. But it'll help with transportation and trailer dollyable reasons. It'll help to be back here versus up front. The cockpit is not the biggest cockpit, but I think it's fairly generous considering how small the boat is. That's enough for me to stick my legs and flip a bass in there, flip a fish in there, store any sort of immediate stuff that just needs to go in the pit real quick. That's going to be all right. The bigger thing was I was going to make 2 giant mega lockers. And these lockers here, if I wanted to fit them, they would fit 10-inch rods if I wanted to outfit them that way, but it's not going to be that way. I'm probably going to fit this one. This one will fit 8 to 8.6 rods comfortably without me having to compromise into the foam backing here. This one, we're going to cut it off right here for an electrical panel, I think. Fairly, as much as we can. I already had the rod layout. All right, so this rod will go in here. So we could honestly put a rod butt system or something right here and keep this. I don't need a giant electrical panel for this boat. It's just not going to be that big. But this will hold all right. And then we even have, we could even compromise it a little bit more up so we can run the electric panel maybe a little bit bigger. Not sure. But we have a lot of room. That's a 7-foot rod.
Could run a 7.6, 7.4. We could possibly make it for an 8-foot. We have a lot of stuff, and that one will just be my mega swim bait giant bass side over there. Casual worm dragon rod side over here. You know, 13 plus tackle trays in there. I'm imagining the larger ones, and I could stick more in here if I wanted to. Probably more like 20 altogether. But I think I might use this one as a day box of some sorts. There's another day box right underneath me. That's where I'm likely going to have a day box slash pedestal combo. This will be the pit stow where I stick any sort of anchor ropes or buoys, you know, anchors, terminal gear, life jackets. I'm going to cram a life jacket in there. It might be a good portable one. I'll stick it in there. And, you know, these will be rod tubed up with foam. So we'll have 2 big giant foam offsets, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the back, along with the foam subfloor. And if you really wanted to put a little bit of foam in here in this big giant empty void, we could do that too. And we might do that, but only after I make sure all my leading conduits are ran to perfection and all the wiring safe from getting caught in the foam. Then we'll just, you can't sink that boat. Boat would be pretty unsinkable if we do a trifecta layer of pour foam in here. We have enough to do all of that. All right, that was it. If you guys got a little small boat like this, rock it out. We have our kits. They're down here. Check them out in the description part of this video below, and also pinned in the comment section. Check us out on tvnation.net. Search all of our aluminum stuff. Not just small boats, medium-sized boats, big boats. It's all there.